Good morning. Today is Friday, August 4th. This is our 9 a.m. Commissioner Redistricting meeting. My name is Carrie Geithner. I am the Vice Chair of the Commission and the Commissioner for Commissioner District 2. The primary purpose of this meeting is to allow for staff to present any updates they have and for this commission to provide staff with additional guidance. As we approach the deadline for designating finalist maps on August 8th, today's meeting will be crucial for us to make specific tweaks or changes to existing maps in order to give us viable options with which to move forward. That also means staff will take a more methodical approach to making any changes to existing maps based on our direction, including making the changes during this meeting in the Esri tool. In that spirit, we respectfully ask that comments during the public comment section be geared towards what specific changes members of the public would like to see in existing maps. As a reminder, members of the audience must refrain from any actions or demonstrations in this hall that is disruptive to the proceedings. To begin, I'd like to start with any other comments by my fellow Redistricting Commission members. And I guess that is item 1, so we can have that read into the record.
Item number 1 is opening remarks.
Commissioner Williams.
Do we need, is Commissioner Bremer virtual or do we need to move to excuse her?
I believe that she is on virtually.
Okay, thank you.
Can give us a wave up there. Or...
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks, okay. Commissioner Williams. I am online.
Thank you very much. So other opening remarks?
No, that was it.
From other commission members. Commissioner Van der Werf.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So just at the appropriate time, and this is for members in the audience and also for the county staff, I did produce a derivation map off of map 3. And I have the shapefile and the map ready to be transmitted at the appropriate time when we get to that. So that was the same process we followed at the last redistricting meeting, so just be aware of that. And what I did with that map is I started with the baseline of map 3, and then I amalgamated the final map 3, sorry. Yeah, you're welcome.
If we could refrain from shouting in the hall, please. Thank you.
So it was the maps that we modified to the numbers from 2 days ago. And then I took several of the elements from map 1, and basically this derivation off of map 3, final map 3, is an amalgamation to my best capacity of map 1 and map 3. And when we get to that point, I'll go through the details about what I think I was able to achieve with that map. All right, thank you very much.
Other comments from commission members? I'll just add a few of my comments. I am looking forward to seeing what Commissioner Van der Werf has come up with a kind of combination of 3 and 1. That's one of the things that I began to see as I was looking through this information, some of the work that I have done as well. I do want to point out an error, however, in the last week's meeting's information that was provided. Map 3 under compactness, under D49, listed that it was all in District 2. That's not accurate. There are at least 2 precincts I've identified, 414 and 418, that were looked like they were excluded. So just want to check in on that. And that may be one of the things that we can kind of work on and work through today. But we either need to update the information to say that that it is split or get those precincts in there. So that's all I have for my comments as well. So seeing no others, let's move on to item 2.
Item number 2, upcoming meetings, recommendations, and general updates. Ryan Parcell, Executive Director, Government Affairs.
All right, good morning, everybody. Let's see here, get this up. All right. Well, today is our August 4th meeting, obviously, and I appreciate what you said, Commissioner Geithner, because being able to take our time today, I think will be really important for this meeting. This redistricting process is basically once every 10 years. And so as we get down to the final handful of meetings, It's important for us to be exact and to take our time, and we've got plenty of time set aside today, so any changes that need to be made can be made directly in the Esri tool, and I think that staff is ready to do that. So today, I'll go through some of this. There's not a lot of new information here for me to go over, but I will just talk a little bit about next steps and competitiveness measurements when the time comes. So our next meeting will be on Tuesday, August 8th, 2023 at 1 p.m. here. And the primary purpose of that meeting will be to designate finalist map options. But that does align with the last day to make any other last direction to staff. And so from there, the last meeting will be August 15th, also at 1 p.m. here, and that will be to adopt the final map. And so in between will be the opportunity for members of the public to make their voice heard about which of the finalist maps they'd like to see adopted. We're doing great on our deadlines here. So we've already covered some of this, but the primary purpose of this slide is to talk about how we can take time in today's meeting to make changes directly into the Esri tool or transmit files as Commissioner Vanderwerf is ready to do to make sure that the intent has been captured correctly. And then once the August 8th meeting is done and all of the map options are finalized, that's when we can look at some of the other competitiveness factors that we talked about way back in the first redistricting meeting, where members of this commission expressed a desire to look at party registration, and we can calculate the Cook Partisan Voting Index with changes still being proposed. And the way that you calculate that based off of 2016 numbers, it didn't make sense for staff to try to calculate that while the maps were still in flux, but once that's set, we can work on that. And it will be a little bit of work because precinct numbers and lines and stuff have changed over the years, and we have to try to account for that. So just as a reminder, the baseline, this is what the current PVI is now for each of the districts. And so, the 2020 number, that's been recalculated as we've been looking at the different lines. So that's all set, but we'll have to redo the 2016 numbers based off of the different boundaries under consideration. And so on the final meeting, it'll have something similar to this, where we'll have all the different finalist map options lined up based on district numbers with the baseline PVI in one column and then all the other PVIs calculated going out. So then you'll have that information for you as well. So any questions?
Questions from the commission? Okay,
Okay,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Seeing none, we will move right along here then to item 3.
Item number 3, update on the creation of maps based on previous commission direction. Steve Schleicher, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
Good morning, Commissioners. Steve Schleicher, County Clerk and Recorder. And before I begin, I'm hoping to get your permission where we could sit there and possibly, we kept the 4 original maps that we spoke about on Wednesday. We kept them in this presentation, and then we added the 5th map, which was the Vanderwerf map. However, to save time, is if you're okay, I'm looking at skipping through maps 1 through 4 since we discussed those on Wednesday, and then go to map 5, which is a brand new map that we're going to be discussing. And then as we sit there and work with one another this morning, we can go back and refer back to maps 1 through 4 if you're okay with that.
Seeing head nods, I don't see any objections, so I think let's move forward with that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, before I begin, so commissioners, we had a very short time frame to go to print. And after we sent this off to DocuMart, we recognized several errors. And I just want to sit there and bring your attention to this, and also to the public, is if you look inside your presentation booklet, and it's going to be page 63, and it's going to be the very first slide at the very top when we're sitting there talking about final map 5, the third criteria for political competitiveness, is the change that needs to be made is in the booklet, it shows District 1 Republican 40,972. That is actually supposed to be 51,327. So if we can all make a pen and ink change on that. Then the last correction is on page 69 in your booklet. And with that change, we sit there and we're looking at the deviations. So it's going to be the top slide, third criteria, political competitiveness. So we're looking at the average deviation of all races. So if we could sit there and take a look at District 1, where it says 28.03%, that is supposed to be 24.99%. District 2 is 28.41%. District 3 is 3.71%, and those are all in Republican favor. District 4 is 0.25% Democrat favor. And District 5 is 1.16% Democrat favor. So those are the corrections that we need to make. And again, I apologize. We had about 3 hours to work on this to get it to DocuMart to be able to print. So now on to final map 5. So as discussed last Wednesday, final map 5 is based on the original map 8. And as we have done before, the 30 suggested precincts in the southeast, are they consolidated into one district? They are not. Fountain for Carson, Security, Widefield, Hanover, they are together. Here is a printout for all to see as a PDF, and we also have one large map with a summary sheet posted in the back. Here is a breakdown to comply with House Bill 211047. The overall range and deviation for this map is 3.74%. Total precincts moved are 67, which comes to 20.74%. Total effective population, 19.49%. Total effective active voters is 18.71%. As you see here, here is the target deviation. And again, as we have all have been working with on all these maps, building up districts 3 and 5, and you can see we're within that target deviation. Here are the precincts moved for final map 5, precincts added, precincts deleted, the impact for each commissioner district. So on to our first criteria for population equality in the Voter Right Act. Here's the total population for each commissioner district by racial ethnicity. And here's a breakdown. So what we were seeing for total population is in District 4, we're seeing a decrease of 3.91% white Caucasian, and in District 5, 3.27% increase in white Caucasian. On to our voting age population. Here's all the data here. And what we are seeing as a breakdown for voting age population is in District 5, an increase of 3.16% white Caucasian. Here's our communities of interest. So our second criteria, communities of interest and compactness. Here are our municipalities and our military installations. Our school districts. And the 30 precincts. So as you can see here, all 30 precincts defined as Southeast Colorado Springs are Commissioner Districts 3, 4, and 5. District 3 has 2 precincts, which makes up 6.66% of the total 30. District 4 has 16 precincts, which makes up 53.33%, and District 5 has 12 precincts, which it makes up 40%. On to the third criteria of political competitiveness. Here is U.S. President. The breakdown where we sit there and look at the graph of that from current commissioner districts to map 5. U.S. Senate. Colorado Governor. Colorado Secretary of State. El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. El Paso County Sheriff. And then in summation, here's what we are seeing, and this does include the corrections that we talked about a couple minutes ago to make pen and ink changes. So in District 1, the average deviation of all races is 24.99% in favor of the Republicans. District 2, 28.41% in favor of Republicans. District 3, 3.71% in favor of Republicans. District 4 is 0.25% in favor of Democrats, and District 5 is 1.16% in favor of the Democrats. As shared on the 4 maps that we spoke about on Wednesday, is closer to 0 is more competitive. So we are looking at some pretty good competitive districts here.
I'm going to just interject a little bit here. I really appreciate all of the work that's gone into trying to help us find these measurements, but this is not the legal definition of competitive. So I just want to make sure that we're all really focusing in on the legal definition of this. This can give us a guide towards that, but remember the legal definition of competitiveness is related to the reasonable belief that these districts could flip from one party to another within 10 years. So I just want to, getting to 0 is not necessarily the legal goal here, and I want to make sure that that is clear. This can be a tool in that, but that's why we have all of those measures. Thank you.
So with that being said, that is our analysis of map 5. Are there any questions?
I see lots of diligent studying here. Do I need to give just a minute for the commission to formulate any questions, or are we ready to move forward?
We could also take this time and start pulling up the Esri tool as you all are taking a look and studying map 5.
I think that would be great. Now, are you preparing to pull up the Esri tool in preparations for direction then? Okay, so we still do need to move on to item 4, public comment, obviously, but you don't have anything else to share for item 3, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So seeing no questions and seeing the end of this presentation, let's go ahead and move on to item 4.
Item number 4, public comment. 4A, the Redistricting Commission will afford up to 3 minutes for public comments addressing suggestions on specific maps and proposed changes to those maps or other comments related to Commissioner redistricting.
Okay, so do we have folks here to speak for public comment? If you could just kind of queue up down here if you'd like, and you just need to state your name for the record, sign in, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay.
My name is Catherine Chukas. I'm a District 3 resident living in Northwest Colorado Springs. I have a few different comments here. And it's really about process. So first is, can we get a copy of Mr. Parcells' presentation put into the Google Drive? There's a lot of work there that's about PVI, and that would be important for everybody to see, not just on the screen. I also want to know how public comments are going to work on August 8th. I also want to know on August 8th, will there be time for edits to map using the same process as we're doing today based upon those public comments on August 8th? Will we do that same as re-editing? I also, it seems to me that during agenda item 6 today, there's going to be 1 or 2 maps proposed. The reason I'm saying this is because we left the last meeting with one of the redistricting commissioners saying, I'm going to go back and think about this and make revisions to final map 1. So that's one of them. And then we heard today as well from another redistricting commissioner of like, I've got some edits to final map 3. So those are going to be 2 of those coming through in agenda item number 6, but there's no time for me to make any public comment on them. So when can the public comment on the 2 edits that are going to happen during agenda item number 6? And I also want to know today is when can the public give clarifications? When can we give clarifications for what's going to happen today? Should we put them into the public portal and do that? Can I verbally tell them to Mr. Parcells? Again, we missed things last meeting, right? There was a shapefile sent that had a precinct split in it, which was against a violation that everyone has used throughout this, but it was accepted as a resolution, even though it had a precinct split. We're going to miss things during this meeting, and I think you want everyone's eyes on this. I also sent a comment to the portal around 4 p.m. yesterday, and they didn't show up until sometime between 7 or 8 this morning. And so I'm happy to look at those and see what I wanted to say about those. Again, I had suggested on that form that it would be a good idea to unite Academy District 20 by moving precinct 445 in final map 4 or final map 3. So just think about those stuff. And, you know, again, don't just have that one hanging off just because it looks like it has a number that belongs with District 49. It doesn't. The other thing I'd like to say is that, again, it's really hard with final map 4, or excuse me, final map 5 that was just submitted. I don't know what the goal is there with Southeast Colorado Springs. It bifurcated Southeast Colorado Springs precincts. I don't know what that means in terms of voters or population, but it bifurcated them. And again, what I wanted to say, and I made this comment yesterday, is if there's a goal to unite Colorado Springs in the Southeast, those 30 precincts, into something called CC4, you already have a proposal that does that. You already have a proposal that unites also Fort Fountain, Fort Carson, Security, Whitefield, and Hanover in one district. It was shared with you and analyzed on July 27th. It's in your bound materials. Maybe make a discussion about that. It achieves all the goals. And again, it was already presented and analyzed. So again, if there's a CC4 discussion of keeping that with Southeast Colorado Springs, don't just put 16 precincts in there and say we did good enough. You didn't. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else here to make a comment on the record? Okay, is there anyone online? Okay.
Favorite work pens, sorry.
Unknown
Hi, this is Shelley.
participant is now joining.
Hello, Sherry Roars.
Hi,
Shelley?
just
Yes.
Yeah, hi. You were talking to the commissioners about redistricting. If you can state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes afterwards. And you can start anytime.
Hi, this is Shelley Roars, not Sherry. Sorry, just to clarify. And so just a couple things. Thank you so much for taking my call, and commissioners for another meeting to clarify things. I agree with Ms. Chuka's comments just a second ago about final map 5 based on original map 8, I think. The Southeast specifically is what I wanted to comment on, and I believe it was Commissioner Vanderwerf's map and his last minute additions. a couple weeks ago, my comments to you were to do the exact opposite of what you wanted. And your comment back to me was, well, I was going to keep the Southeast together. So are you telling me you want to keep that now separate? Because that's what I see from your map. So you are doing the exact thing that you said a few weeks ago that you were going to do and was hoping to do in keeping the Southeast together. And your map does not do that. So number one, map 5 should not be considered unless you keep Southeast whole. So you go against what you said just a couple weeks ago. I'd also like some clarification from Mr. Schleicher. I had asked at the meeting I was at on the 27th, I think, about staff. So could I get clarification of those staff people that are listed on the El Paso County website of their affiliation? Ms. Ridlin, Ms. Lee, Carl Nordstrom, Sydney Nelson, Mike Dyson, Ryan Parcell, and yourself. How can we get political affiliation for all of those staff members, please? And do I need to take my time to do that? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm on hold. I can't hear anybody. So the other thing, I guess, would be the very first thing was Mr. Purcell said, you do this once every 10 years. It's important to be exact. And I 100% agree with that. I'm in Mr. Vanderwerf's district. You also may know me as the League of Women Voters, but I'm here as a citizen today. And the importance of our numbers. And one of the things that came up is the political competitiveness. And I heard Mr. Schleicher say it was pretty competitive. And then we heard the legal definition from one of the other commissioners. And as close to zero as possible, that's only, if I look at that number, that's only 2 of those districts, maybe 3. There were 2 other districts that weren't even close to zero. So I'm not sure how pretty good competitive that is, but that was my other notation is 2 of them looked very skewed, and the other 2, they were pretty darn close to zero. So kudos for you on that. Thank you for your time today and appreciate all that you're doing in volunteering for this commission.
So commissioners, to address that question, is I was asked at a meeting to provide staff party affiliation, and not being able to sit there and share that information at that time is knowing that we as citizens, to include staff that work in the elections department, are allowed to be confidential voters. So there are many citizens in the community that pay $5 to the clerk and recorder's office to become a confidential voter. In addition to that, this is public information where you could just go out there and find out party affiliation. But I feel that this probably should be something answered by our county attorney, because I did reach out in regards to that as far as providing that information, but it is public information that's already out there.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I agree with Mr. Schleicher. This is publicly available information already as far as party affiliation is concerned. I think that that's probably not appropriate to go too much further down that road for purposes of these meetings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. County Attorney. I think before the end of this meeting, we will probably get some clarification. And I know that this commission will likely want some additional clarification as we go through and discuss direction and what that direction means for future meetings. So I think a lot of that will be cleared up through this meeting. And certainly if there are remaining questions, I think that staff can answer those to those who are in the room specifically and need clarification. So let me just ask one more time, is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment today? And since we just had one online? Okay, so we will go ahead and move forward then to item 5.
Item number 5, redistricting commission members publicly deliberate regarding any individual ideas and/or present any individual maps to other redistricting members and to members of the public.
Okay, so who would like to begin? Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Yes, thank you. So would it be appropriate at this time to talk about the map that I have worked on, the derivation off of 3?
I think that individual ideas and/or present any individual maps to other redistricting members and to members of the public covers that. So I think that that's fine to go ahead and present that now.
Okay, very good. So in following the procedures from our last redistricting meeting, I took map 3. I've made a derivation of map 3, which has an amalgamation of map 1 and map 3. I'll start talking about that in a minute. But just be aware, I have already produced the shape file and the map, but I have not sent it to anybody because based on legal counsel, that transmission needs to be done in a public forum. So I am ready to transmit that so that the team can pull it up on the screen. And now let me talk about what I did with it. So if I could refer people back to map 3, maybe just while you're going to map 3, for some of the public comments on map number 5, just be aware that that was just an attempt to try to figure out how to keep Carson in District 4, and then also District 4 would have been including the Southeast, the 30 precincts in the Southeast. And I wasn't able to get there. So I actually am very well aware that I didn't get the 30 precincts into that map 5. So why I'm now starting with map number 3 is because it starts as a baseline with those 30 precincts, but it's in District 5 instead of District 4. The changes that I made to map 3, and I'm calling it map 3-3, I tried to do an ESRI 3.1 being Commissioner District 3 version change 1, but it doesn't let me put dots in it. So it's identified as map 3-31 is the way it's identified. And let me know when you want me to transmit it. But I kept going back to map 3. There were no changes to District 4 in my modification to map 3 from the final map 3. So 4 didn't change at all. Up in the Northeast, we had a conversation yesterday, and I thought it was very, very helpful, that it's probably best, like in map 3, 219 is in District 2, but it was recommended that 441 probably also should be in District 2. So in my modified map 3, I put 441 back into District 2. I also put 440 back into District 2 for your awareness. And then in the Northwest, I went back to the map 1 proposal about the configuration for monument. For those of you that may have map 1 in front of you, it had monument in District 3. And so I went back to the map 1 configuration in the Northwest, but did it off of a map 3 variation. So this is part of the amalgamation of map 1 and map 3. And then in the process of making those changes, I had to make modifications to precincts more in the central area, and that's where several of these changes are in fact made in order to get the numbers and everything else to balance out. And hopefully it will translate. By the way, I also found in map 3 one precinct that was split. I'm forgetting which one it was, but we did have one error in map 3 where there was a precinct split. I just don't remember where it was.
Was that precinct 310?
Might have been, yeah. So, but I did fix that in my map 3 mod, but it'd be worthwhile to just confirm that when we bring it up. So, and then, let's see. So the populations now for this modification to map 3, I think are really good. And we know that we want District 5 and District 3 to be overpopulated over the average because there'll be limited growth in those areas. So District 3 is 149,982 and District 5 is 148,404. The other 3, which are most likely going to grow, District 1 and 2 and 4, are respectively 144, 812, 144, 767, and 144, 805. So they're all 144,000 and change, and I think the average is 146 thereabouts. So they're all under the average, and 3 and 5 are over the average. And the total difference between the lowest and the highest is about 4,000. So they're actually pretty close. Okay. So having said that, I do have there were a series of changes I had to make kind of in this north central Colorado Springs area after making the other changes in the outside to get these numbers to balance. And then I worked on a political competitiveness number off of the Secretary of State numbers because that's very, very math intensive. And I just didn't have time to do all of the different races, but I did the Secretary of State race. And between the final map 3 and my modified map 3, the districts actually become just slightly more competitive on the Secretary of State numbers. I don't know how they come out on the others, but they become slightly more competitive on the Secretary of State numbers. So that's kind of where those end up. So I do have the commission, oh my goodness. I do have the commission direction form here. And I also have the shape file and the map. And I don't know if it's appropriate at this time to hand that to the staff, or if we do that in a later part of the agenda.
If you're able to send that file, we can pull it up to speak to the map.
I can send it if you'll give me a moment. I haven't sent it, but I need to send it.
So Madam Chair, as we did on Wednesday when we did this, the commission went ahead and took a 5-minute recess as we were sitting here doing this, and we were able to pull it up once we came back into session.
I appreciate that reminder, and I think that's a great idea, since again, item 5 does say that commission members can display it to other members. I think that's perfectly appropriate still under 5. 5 and 6 tend to start to blend a little bit because we have comments and direction that we have, but I think that this is still appropriate under item 5. And so let's take that quick 5-minute recess. Okay, we'll call this meeting back to order after this brief recess, and we now have Commissioner Vanderwerf has transmitted a new map that he would like to display for the commission, and I believe that there are some copies of information as well. So we'll turn it over to you to pull that map up, and so we can all take a look.
And if I may, Madam Vice Chair, thank you.
Of course.
So the county attorney did make copies of this commission direction form to do the modification from 3 to what I'm calling map 3-31. So I have them here, and if they could be distributed out to the public, if that's acceptable, so that they can have the form, and let's be hopeful that there isn't a mistake on this one somehow like we had from 2 days ago, but it is really hard to do this and get it exactly right all the time. And then the one other point that I'd like to make about this map for those in the audience or anybody listening online, what this map 3.3-31 does, this modification to map 3, it also does keep Patty Jewett whole in District 3, in case there were any questions about that. Okay, so please now proceed.
So I just wanted to kind of present what's on the Google Drive right now that we have put Commissioner Vanderwerf's zipped shapefile on the Google Drive, as well as the general updates PowerPoint. So that is available currently here as well. And as we did with the previous meetings, once we have a scanned version of the precinct moves, we'll also load that up as soon as possible. So I have on the screen, I just have we haven't loaded it up yet. I just wanted to do it in real time so everyone can kind of see that this is indeed the map that Commissioner Vanderwerf has submitted to us. So I guess now is the time if we want to have a naming convention for this map. Do we want it to be Final Map 6?
Well, it might be in the end, but since I submitted it for the moment here, for purposes of discussion, Madam Chair, if this is okay, could we just call it map 3-31,
Yes,
which is the phraseology I've been using?
Okay, and then in terms of when it becomes something that is officially submitted on the site, then if that name changes at all, we can do that before submitting it.
Yes, please. And the county attorney has recommended to me that once we get to that point where we do a formal submission, there'll have to be a motion and a second, and at that point, I could name it something else at that point.
Correct, and I think that we will move on to item 6 before that happens. So we'll look at this map and have that opportunity for you to present it, and then we'll move on to item 6, and you would be welcome at that point to make that motion.
Okay, we are ready to go.
All right. I guess maybe just by way of additional description or maybe a little bit of reiteration of what I had stated. Thank you for pulling the precincts up. I am hopeful that I have every precinct whole in this, although it is hard because some of the shapes are so bizarre, and there could be some little minor thing in here. But if we could start on the north end, maybe just scroll down a little bit. So you might not know. Okay, yeah, scroll back up to the north end. So we had this conversation yesterday. If you look at the lower right of the green where it says 441, off of the original map 3 going to this modified map 3, I changed that from District 2 to District 1. This is about trying to keep Black Forest whole. I also added 440 from District 2 to District 1. And then if you go to the northwest side of the map, I am hopeful, and I believe that it is. In fact, actually, I do see one little tiny problem way up there in the upper edge of Palmer Lake. It's probably, 10 homes or 5 homes or something. Thank you.
Done. I think we have one more as well.
Yep.
We can take a quick peek down here at
Precinct 441.
what are we missing?
441.
Oh, some
here.
little corner there in the bottom.
And just to show everyone, if we remove the districts, we're able to clearly see that that outline.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So, well, we do have some changes then in 441. I'll just ask maybe let's go ahead and make that change. I think there's a little triangle just south of Ayers Road as well.
This this may be a census block that doesn't perfectly. Oh no, it does. All right.
Okay.
So then that is a whole.
I'm hopeful
precinct
that did not change much, and it doesn't look like it did. Both of District 1 and District 2 are still in the 144 range, which is approximately 2,000 below the average. Okay. And there may be another one, a little one here in 210. Go to the southeast corner there. Maybe there's another little tag there. Okay, thank you. And there might even be another one if you just look at where it says District 3 just below it, probably doesn't mean anything. But actually, if you see the line between the Academy and the blue, just to the left of I-25.
We can try, but this may be a one of those examples where if you grab a little bit.
And then
you
again,
grab
that
too
might
much.
just simply be an inaccuracy of the Esri tool, which sometimes is the case.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just an inaccuracy of the Esri tool. So I think we're probably in a good place there. So if you could back out a little bit, and then I'll just explain that I took, again, the map 1 configuration in the monument area and put that back into this modified map 3. That's what I did up there. And then if you go to the south side and you go to the southeast, for everyone's awareness, between the map 3 and this modified map 3, there are no changes on that border between District 5 and District 4. That's exactly the same. And I do believe that the 30 identified precincts that we're defining as the southeast are whole in District 5. Now, if you kind of look in the middle now where you see Precinct 173, you're right, you're almost right. There you go, 173. If you scroll in a little bit more, thank you, you'll notice that that's the north half of that is Patty Jewett Golf Course. And there's the area north of Patty Jewett, the area west of Patty Jewett, and the area north of the Patty Jewett Golf Course, the area west of the Patty Jewett Golf Course, and also south of the Patty Jewett Golf Course are all whole in District 3. And I believe that meets that requirement. One change that I made, and it was a little bit about trying to make the numbers work. If you go to the bottom part of the screen there, if you look at 178, Precinct 178, that was in District 3, and I put that into District 5. That's one small change that I made. And then if we scroll north, and keep scrolling north, this is where the preponderance of changes had to be made in order to make this work. And so going from the District 3 map to this map, I had to move several precincts from out of 5 into 1, and there will be several that you'll see there. And then there was a little bit of an adjustment also in the northeast part of the visual here, where I had to move some precincts around over here in the northeast side in order to make this work. So if you go up to the northeast, you'll see 143. I moved that out, as examples, I moved that out of District 1 and moved it into District 2. And also 146 was moved out of District 1 into District 2. And these are, again, modifications off of map 3. And let's see, I'm just looking at 163, let's see, 165. Okay, if you go down a little bit further, was there a little tag missing there? Thank you.
Yep, just the rest of 143.
Okay, and since that was a modification between 1 and 2, I'm just checking to see, and they're still both in the 144 range. So thank you for fixing that little tag. If you take a look at 165, which is just to the right of the green there, 165 was in 5, and I moved it into 2. So you can just see that there were these slight modifications here that I had to do that to make the numbers work. For whatever it's worth, 135 and 145 were in District 1 on the original map, final map 3, and they are still in District 1 on this map. Also 145. So 163, 135, and 145, they did not change. And then 144, I moved from District 5 to District 1. And then I moved let's see, I don't know if I need to go through all of this, but basically a small grouping of precincts. So 121, 120, 138, and 242, that grouping, I moved from District 3 to District 1. And that was to help offset the movement of Monument from District 1 to District 3. So that's kind of where I helped to balance it. So I think that's the preponderance of the changes here. And Madam Vice Chair, I believe that's all. I don't know if there's much else that I need to describe on this. So, okay.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I think that there's a lot of interest in kind of combining those 1 and 3, and I know I'm interested in that. Are there other comments from the commission? I will just add that I think there's a little bit of room in your deviation, which is good because there are a couple of things that I would personally like to see adjusted. There's still room for, and I think we can do that under item 6. If you are open to that, and we could talk through that, and certainly we could save a variation and then come back to it if it doesn't work. But I think that'll be an opportunity to really look through that and kind of tweak some of those things if you're open to that. So if
Yes.
there are no, go ahead.
No, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. You know, exactly along the lines of what you just mentioned, this may be a pretty reasonable map to ultimately accept in a later part of our agenda, and then to try to do some derivations off of this map to deal with some of the other issues. And I'll just give you an example of that. You'll notice, let's see, actually we did have a fairly substantial change in District, well, not a huge change. I think in District 3 it went up maybe about 1,000, so now it's at 150. So now the variation is about a 5,000 difference, or that's still well within what we're trying to do. I will make the point, we might have a consideration here where we want the difference in numbers between 3 and 5 and 1, 2, and 4 to be slightly bigger than what they are now, to just try to anticipate more future growth. That's one possible, tinkering around with this map that we could work on. And then the other one, I think, is also with regard to political competitiveness, just doing the best we can. In some of these cases, it might be there's some value generated there by just switching 2 precincts between 2 districts and see what it does. So there's a little changing back and forth and see if that does anything.
I appreciate that. I will say one of the things that I know we've talked a lot about, that this potential future growth, and I've weighed that a lot. It's not one of our criteria, so it's certainly going to be maybe an after effect of that, but not something that I would want to give up, say, a community of interest or something else to achieve because it's not part of that criteria, though I appreciate the conversation around that. And also, I think because of this new law, this law is very strange. And so redistricting cannot be done in 5 years, even if the population explodes, because we would still have to go back to these census numbers. And so I think it's a little bit of a clunky, complicated process, but I would, hazard a guess that it would make the most sense when the next census happens. And at that point, it's very hard to predict 10 years out. And at that point, I would think that things are going to change very substantially anyway. So I'm not sure with this new law that it provides us a whole lot of real opportunity to think ahead in the same way that, having real-time data in the future would have allowed for us like we've been able to do in the past. So just a comment there. But any other comments from commission members before we move on to item 6? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to look at all the, the analysis numbers, but I appreciate looking at this. I think at the last meeting I stated that I was leaning toward a variation of map 3. And so this working at 3 and then trying to include some of the recommendations from map 1, I think is in line with exactly what I was hoping for last time, some sort of deviation of 3. So I greatly appreciate this. I'd like to see the analysis numbers, of course, on the other information, but no, I'm very, very happy to see this. Thank you.
Okay, with that, it sounds like we are ready to move on to item 6.
Item number 6, Redistricting Commission members provide consensus direction to staff.
Okay, and it seems like we already have quite a bit of anticipation and would like to see this map moved forward as a final. Commissioner Vanderwerf, would you like to make a motion to that?
Yes, thank you very much. Before I make the motion, maybe I can just ask my fellow redistricting commissioners. I could make a motion to call this map 6 if you would like, or would you like to replace one of the other maps? I'm happy to call it map 6, and if we call it map 6, it does preserve the other ones that we can still use as baselines for future reference if we wish to do so. So is there any objection to calling it map 6?
I have no issues about that. You did talk about if we're not going to use another map. I do think on your other map 5, I don't think I think the issue is related to the splitting of District Southeast Colorado Springs. For me, is going to make that one not a tenable map. So
I appreciate that point. I am comfortable if my fellow redistricting commissioners are also comfortable with it, replacing map 5 with this new map and making that the motion. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so that has been moved and seconded. I'm just going to make sure, because Commissioner Bremer is online and has been a little bit quiet up there, and I want to just make sure she has the opportunity to weigh in here before we take the vote if she'd like. Commissioner Bremer?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Geithner. I agree with what Commissioner Gonzalez just said, that that breaking up of the Southeast is untenable to me as well. So I'm good with the motion as put forth, and second.
Okay, so I will call the roll. Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bremer?
Aye.
And the vice chair votes aye. That passes unanimously. So this will be moved forward to a final map. So I think now we have the opportunity to pull maps up. If you have direction that is already prepared, of course, we can take some of that, but this is also an opportunity to pull up those maps and move things around in real time. Is there anyone who'd like to begin that? Commissioner Williams?
I actually don't have any direction today, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I just want to see the analysis on the new proposed map, because again, I was looking forward to seeing a option of off of 3, and so it looks like we have a new option that's now map 5, and so I just want to see the analysis on that. Thank you.
I think we'll probably have to wait for that on the 8th of the actual analysis of the map, but I'm too very interested in that. But in the interest of utilizing this time best, I think I do have a few things I'd like to see tweaked, and then maybe we could have them both presented on the 8th and see, where we land. I do have a request, though. I'm a paper person. I know we don't have the ability to print these large in-house, but I guess it's truly a question for staff if we can at least get a smaller version of this printout, even if it is on 2 pages. Is that possible?
I apologize. Which printout?
This new map that has just been brought up, is it possible for us to print that out? I know we can't do it on the large scale, but can we even get it on maybe like a legal size, even if it's on 2 pages? I'm a paper person, and so it's very difficult to see the whole map and then see the numbers at the same time. And I'm just wondering if we could do that quickly.
Well, they're saying yes, so I feel pretty confident about
Okay.
that. We can work on that immediately after the meeting.
Okay, so, and I apologize to the commission here that I did not say that before our previous recess. It just occurred to me that because the map on the screen, when you zoom out to really get a feel for what's going on, you can't see the numbers, but then you zoom in too close and you can't see the rest. So if the commission would be willing to indulge another 5-minute recess to get those printed for all of us, and by my request, okay. Any objection? Okay, so we will recess for 5 minutes. Thank you for your patience, and we will, as soon as we can get it printed, we will get back into session. Thank you. Okay, we're going to call this meeting back to order again. Thank you so much for your patience while we got a paper copy to help in the facilitation of any tweaks to this map. I am going to ask, did this map get uploaded online for the public already?
I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, perfect. And so I know I do have a couple of things that I'd like to see if we can make work. I think my request would be, since I don't want to force any of those changes on the commissioner or Commissioner Vanderwerf specifically, can we make a copy of that as a working map right now in this session that we can kind of play with? And then if we decide we want to move forward with that, great. But if not, we still have the option to go back.
Those PDFs have been uploaded to the Google Drive.
Also have a copy here without the precinct numbers if anybody would like that.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Yes, thank you. If you could go back to that Google Drive display, I just want to make sure I know. And I think it'd be appropriate as a matter of public record, so just to make sure. So there is a PDF there that's called Final Map 5. And now there's also a PDF called Map 3-31. So we just changed 3-31 to be Final Map 5. So just to make sure we don't confuse people in the public, what's on the Google Drive here, this Final Map 5, was that the Map 5 before we made the motion today?
Yes, so and if need be, I can create a directory in here and that's why I just kept the name of 331 in the interest of what we're looking at in the meeting. I can create a directory in here for files provided to staff during the meeting so that there is that separation. We just, at this time, haven't necessarily removed Final Map 5 as in terms of what we analyzed for this meeting. So that's why
I would say, and I'm going to make the suggestion, and we can have a conversation about about this. If the Map 5 prior to today's motion, if that could be removed because we're no longer considering it, removed from what the public has access to, that would be great because it's no longer under consideration. And then the Map 3-31, because we decided to call that Map 5 to reduce potential public confusion, is maybe to change that to Map 5 or adjusted Map 5 or something like that.
I would just maybe ask our county attorney to weigh in as well. I'm not whether it can be removed or whether we need to keep it in there. Maybe we need an archive folder or something that kind of helps delineate.
Yeah, we would definitely need to keep that in there for the public as an archive.
I agree with Mr. Schleicher. I think as long as it's in there, we can change names as we see fit.
Okay, so maybe we create an archive folder for that old Map 5 with a description or a name change that, removed from consideration, and then rename the new one. And I think if they're in separate folders with some other delineation, they should be.
That's perfectly acceptable to me. I just want to make sure that we don't confuse residents with all of these names. It's even hard for us to keep them straight.
And commissioners, as you can see, is Carl just created an archive folder, and he went ahead and we're going to rename Final Map 5, and we placed it in the archive folder so the public still has access to that map.
Okay. And then what about the map that's on for the current maps, the ones that we have agreed to keep in place from today's meeting. Maybe if you could bring up that list, because, you know, we were originally calling it 3-31. I'm okay calling it 3-31 because I know what that means, but I just don't want to confuse residents. I think our motion was to call it map 5, so maybe we should call it that.
I agree that one should be renamed. And even if I know it's a long name, but even if we wanted to put in there, you know, current map 5 previously, or presented as, or something along those lines to be the most clear.
Yeah, and maybe another way to address that is this could be called final map 5, and then maybe in parens as of today's date, something like that.
I was going to suggest exactly that.
So for clarification, it is final map 5 proposed 0804 is the name currently in our Google Drive.
Okay, so
Here it is in the tool.
okay, so thank you so much for bringing that up. And so is this, as we discussed, is this a copy that we can use as a working copy at this point, so we don't?
Yes, we can just save as right now.
And so that way, this can either be adopted, or if it doesn't work, then we can go back to the original and look at that.
Sounds good.
I appreciate the public's patience. Again, you know, we talked about, you know, this is a lot of real live work that's happening here today, but this is the requirement for us. And so appreciate the patience as we work through this. Some things that may work and some things that don't. So if it's okay with the commission, I'd love to make some of those small changes that we were kind of talking about. And obviously, feel free to jump in here. Yep. But I want to start with precincts 414 and 418. So those two precincts are in D49, and those two would be cut off in this process. So I'd like to see those two put back into District 2. And of course, I'll watch that deviation down there. For clarification, I believe it's roughly, the deviations can be about 7,000 plus or minus before it starts to move past that 5,000 threshold. Or sorry, 5%.
Madam Vice Chair, if I might.
Of course.
So I appreciate that point. I think we've got, I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but I think it does produce some pretty large deviations. So in the interest of trying to figure out how to keep D49 whole, as you're attempting to do, there may need to be another precinct, maybe out east somewhere, that gets moved into District 4. Because now District 4 is at 139. You got about a 10,000.
Yeah, and
That is still within the 5%, to be clear. So
Is 10,000 within 5%?
It's about 7,500 between the lowest and the highest. So if you were looking at midpoint, you may want to think of it as about 3,500 either way.
So I do have some to move into. I think we'll still be once we move those.
And at any time, you guys will see on the screen, we can bring up a quick population summary report, and down here at the bottom will give us a quick feedback on what that overall deviation percentage is. So right now it's at 6.92. So as we make changes, whenever you'd like to bring that up, we can just double check to make sure that we're below the 5%.
Well, I think it's good to give it a try. And I'm just going to make the point that if there's something else that can be moved into D4 from D2, then we get back to the numbers balance.
And Commissioner Geithner, which two precincts did we move there?
414 and 418.
Okay, thank you. Because we can look at the population of 162, which is just to the left and south of, see the road, sorry, south of Constitution maybe.
And while we possibly consider that, is 162 and D49?
It is not.
No, it's
Okay.
in District 11, but that's, I believe,
I just wanted to make sure we weren't just trading D49 for D49.
If I could give a suggestion, looking at precinct 162, which has a population of 1,856, moving into 4, that may get us pretty close.
Yes.
Plus, that gives a pretty solid boundary there as well.
And for your awareness, Commissioner Williams just recommended that about 30 seconds before you did. You might have missed it.
So that brings us closer. It's 5.65% now.
Can you pull up an overlay with D49?
Yes.
And while he's doing that, I will just say, of course, it would be great to keep all those school districts together. We've talked about how difficult it is. I do want to try, especially that Powers corridor, to break off a piece of that lower Powers corridor is a little concerning to me because that community is, that really is kind of just in the middle of a neighborhood, in my opinion. So I'm willing to take a look at what other ones, but if we can at least get those two in, that would be very helpful.
And I apologize. We might have to take layers on and off to kind of clearly see, since that reference layer tends to be below everything. But just for reference, this here is School District 49. And as we're looking at the districts, it is a bit lighter. I apologize.
Is there a way to put in the overlay that you have here? Can you get maybe if you scroll in, you get precincts?
Yes, I can get precincts here. It's just a little bit harder to see that yellow boundary.
It is, yeah.
So commissioners, right now, based on that boundary.
Yeah, we did talk about those two previously, and I agree those are in D49, but I think that the community of interest of Black Forest outweighs the importance of being in up there. And so that's why I say, it won't be perfect, but I think that makes sense. The Powers corridor doesn't make nearly as much sense to me because those neighborhoods they're all connected down there. So that I think is more important. I'm trying to look at, those yellow lines are really hard to see. The southern boundary of D49.
Yeah, if we could get the precincts back. So what's outside there we go. Thank you. Yeah, we just basically have precincts and D49 just not matching up in some places.
So it looks like that's the southern, so D49 actually splits 422 and 453. Am I reading that?
Yes.
correctly? Okay, so those could go either way. I'm wondering about those because of the border there of 24 and being more rural. If it makes more sense to have those in 4, as 24 as a logical dividing line because they are more rural. And again, though I'd love to see it all together if we have to make a move. I think 414 and 418 being part of that powers corridor makes more sense, where because we have some of those rural areas, I think maybe 422 and 453 could be moved. Commissioner Gonzalez, do you have any thoughts based on that kind of Eastern Plains rural?
Well, I
feel?
mean, the 24 is an actual line. What was the concern about not using 161?
It doesn't quite get us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the other one to choose would be 161. And
You just flipped 162, and then right above it is 161.
Oh,
That
I'd
has
be open
a-
to that too. That'd be great.
And I have no idea what the, in terms of demographics, but it's right next to it, and the same thing on the powers corridor. So
And that one has a population of 2,553. So we could try that one and see what happens. Let's try that one first, and then we could go back and try the other 2 big ones.
I believe 161 and 162 were in District 2 previously, so it minimizes a move there as well. Well, no, we're talking about moving them into 4.
Now, for whatever it's worth, that's pretty close. The District 2 is still just a tad bit high, with the average being 146, and you're now at 145, 200. Well, it's
Well, that's-
below the average, but it's also probably the fastest growing. Yeah.
With that change, with that precinct, our deviation is at 3.9%.
It's within it's within what our goals are. And that was 162. No, I'm sorry. What was that precinct number?
It was
Overall,
overall
161.
160, and so we've moved 161 and 162. I'm just putting these on the form here.
So 414 and 418 have gone to District 2 from District 4. 161 and 162 has gone from District 2 to District 4.
Excuse me.
And any thoughts on that?
I'd like to ask a question of the Madam Vice Chair. So
Yeah, so I mean, I'm comfortable with those so far. I do have a little bit of work on the northern boundary as well. As we've talked about, I don't love having a lot of that western side in District 2, as I think Commissioner Bremer and I have agreed that there's a distinction there of those communities, but we've got to get to population balance here. But I do think there are a couple of things. I know that you added some of those western precincts back into District 1, like 121, I think you mentioned.
correct.
In order to balance population. I would prefer to see that balance happen on the east side of the map. So rather than 121 and those districts, if we could, there's kind of like this 143, 134. I think if we could pull those back down, a couple of those into 1, and then maybe spread out 5. So I can go precinct by precinct to make it easy here.
If I could just ask, make sure I understand what you're suggesting is maybe kind of, it's like trying to rebalance with 3 districts, if you will.
Yeah, kind of trying to make that.
So if you take a 121 and what else over there, 121 and maybe 97, which is that crazy little precinct there, but let's say 121 and 90 and 97, put that into District 5 is what I think you're suggesting.
Correct. So
And then that will make District 5 too populous. So you'll have to take something out of 5. You'll just have to switch over three districts.
yes,
So if you add to 5 and you take away from 1, then you can put maybe 143, 134, 146 or something like that into 1, try to balance those 2. But then
Exactly.
you'll still have to do something between 2 and 5.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
There's going to be a couple of switches. That's why I said,
Yeah.
that's why I said, let's do it on a working map and let's see what makes it work. And we may have
Yeah.
to switch it back and forth. And I know that this is time consuming and we may not 100% get there, but this is what I would be doing if we had the time in between meetings. So I appreciate the patience to try and work through that. I think it makes a little bit more sense in terms of what those communities look like.
And while you're
to make them
working,
more compact. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I'll let you keep working through that, because if you move 143 and 134 into Commissioner 1, which represent, I think, that's mostly Norwood, then you could move 253. Nope, that's moving, sorry, that was the
Well,
wrong
if you
move.
want, I'll suggest if you want to try and move 143 and 144 into 1, then you move 121 into 5 to balance that. Then you would need to move something from 5 to 2. But that can be tried.
And Commissioners, if I could also make a suggestion, is taking a look at our precincts that are north of Woodman, west of Black Forest Road. We have one outlier, which is 445. So the possibility of maybe considering moving 445 from 2 to Commissioner District 1. So we have all the precincts that are north of Woodman, east of Black Forest Road within one commissioner district.
I'll defer to the 2 resident commissioners over that.
That would make sense, I believe, but I need to do the numbers there.
I agree. I like in concept, I like the idea of that. And sorry, I had to grab a few more maps here to do some comparisons. But if we want to go ahead and try that, and then let's look at where we are with deviation.
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, may I for just a moment?
Of course.
Because the public comment phase is closed, should somebody in the audience want to make a suggestion or anything like that, their avenue at this point is through the website. I'm aware of one, which Scott is getting uploaded, so just want to make that aware if anybody wants to look at any updated comments on the website.
Thank you.
Wait, which ones did you move?
445 was moved from District 2 to District 1.
So sorry, we were discussing maybe moving 121 into 5. And I'm going to look at up the population here.
You just gotta love those little tags that you have to look for all of them.
And is that contemplating leaving 445 where
I
it is
think-
based on this map?
I think leaving everything where it is and just adding that in, so trying to see where that puts us. Let's see.
So, Madam Chair, I'll just a comment here. Madam Vice Chair, just a quick comment. I don't know if there's other considerations, but the population numbers look reasonable. They're a little broader spread than the baseline start of map 5, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because those are the districts that will grow.
Yeah, can you go ahead and just bring up the deviation with that move and then,
I think I saw 4.47 or 4.77. Oh, no, that's a little bit too much.
So that was moving precinct 121 from District 3 to District 5, created a bit more of a deviation.
If we could go back to the map. So that would be, we need to move something from 5 to 2. If we move, because 2 is the lowest, 5 is the highest. We move something from 5 to 2, that deviation will definitely go down.
So we could go back to precinct 161. Nope, that's in 4. Never mind, don't move that one. Five to 2.
Would there be an objection to take a look at 160 since it does kind of creep down and create a 3-district separation right here?
Well, if I might, if you move, I think you might be suggesting moving 160 from 2 to 5, and I like that from the concept of compactness. But then we definitely have to move a precinct or 2.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's my bad.
You were doing it in the reverse.
Yes.
But there's some reasonableness in the idea of kind of squaring off these lines instead of having this District 2 tag going down into 160. But if you do that, then you've got some stuff up north that you've got to move into 2.
And, precinct 154 has a population of 4,096. That's a pretty big one to move from 5 to 2.
Yeah, so Madam Vice Chair, one possibility is move 154 from 5 to 2, move 160 from 2 to 5, and see what happens. Willing to accept that? And see what
yeah,
it
let's
does?
see what it looks like. So very close. So maybe there's a little more here to be done.
We went
Oh, it is
from
4. You're correct. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
4. We're actually
4.05.
that's actually pretty good, and I think it
Sorry, I'll
produces a
pull
little
that
bit
up again.
more compactness as well, getting that 160 into 5. Something that I like about kind of where we're at the moment, just for consideration for my fellow redistricting commissioners, is, and I know it's not specifically a criteria, but if you look at the District 1, District 2, and District 4, the ones that are most likely to grow, they're all in the 144s with this current configuration, 144 and change. And the other two are within about 300 of each other at about 150. Or actually, not even 300, actually 200. So those population numbers are good at this configuration.
I'm just going to look, I agree with you. I'm just going to look a little bit at the population numbers. I would like to get as much as we can, to be honest, under the deviation requirement into 5 of that western part. So I'm wondering if we could sneak one more precinct in there to at least try and accommodate the most of that western side into 5, but it depends on what the population of those guys are. I've walked many of those neighborhoods, and they often feel disconnected because of the location that they are there. And so if we can get another 1 or 2 in there, I think that it's better to keep those in 5 if possible. But we may not be able to. We'll see.
I think, would you consider the most likely choices then 154, 166, and 157 maybe? Or
Yeah, I think so.
would you want to increase the size of 5 going east or going north?
I think going east, that's what I was saying, to try to keep the most. You see those kind of jut out a little bit, but again, we may not be able to, but like 157, I'm very familiar with that one. And I mean, all those along there, let's see if.
You want to give 157 a try?
Let's try it.
Just see what it looks like. We may need to go back. It might not work.
We're going to end up.
It is a big difference, but why don't you do that deviation calculation and let's see what it looks like. That's pretty big.
Okay, I'm still looking here on whether there's a better place to move around, like I said, because I'd love to see that. That it is very tough when we move from. You can see in 1, it's very compact, kind of towards the northern side, and obviously trying to get the southeast. But that becomes, kind of you end up with this very long, skinny up through the middle of Colorado Springs, which kind of leaves, and I know we're just trying to balance that. So just trying to see if we can get a little more balance. Let me just look at a little more closely at this. And again, I appreciate.
Madam Vice Chair, if we could maybe just, if you're willing to do a few what ifs here,
Sure.
Maybe put 157 back into 2 and try 154, 2 precincts north, and just see if that's any better. And then if you could show us the deviation. Oh my gosh, that's even worse. Okay. We'll take that one out, put that one back into 2. I have one other suggestion, and I'll just ask if the Madam Vice Chair would be willing to accept it for consideration. Let's finish this up, and then I'll make the suggestion. If you could scroll north. Madam Vice Chair, are you willing to consider moving 165 from District 2 to District 5 and see what the numbers look like? Or do you feel more strongly that that should stay in 2?
Okay, let me compare this to my previous one here.
It may not produce good numbers either, but right now it's pretty good. No, I like these numbers, but to Madam Vice Chair's comments, she had an interest is if we could get that deviation closer to the 5 instead of the 4 by throwing a little bit more into 5. Unfortunately, all of these precincts take you from 4 to 7 or something.
Right, this is about trying to keep communities of interest for me. I'd rather try to make those lines make sense with the neighborhoods that are there, even if it means getting closer to that deviation, because we will still have met it. So I'm going to ask again. So let's repeat what you were asking.
Yes, what I was suggesting is, we tried 2 precincts before and the deviation went too big. So I wanted to do one more try here with precinct 165, which is in the center of the page, moving that from 2 to 5.
Sure, let's try that.
And we probably will not produce what we're looking for, but we're going to find out in a moment for sure. And then if we could do a deviation.
Yeah, that was about 2,400 citizens that were moved.
So my recommendation, Madam Vice Chair, would be to put that back into 2.
I agree. I do think that what we've come up with, those few changes are already, really a good step forward to dealing with some of the concerns that I had. So I'm though I'd like to do more, I think this is I appreciate these changes and would be open to officially making those changes to move that map forward. Commissioner Vanderwerf, if you are open to those, or if you are not open to those and you'd like to keep your original 5 map, we could make this a 6 map and consider them both going forward. But I do think that some of those things are improvements for me, though not all of them. And so I'd be interested in preserving those to get the analysis done on those.
So, Madam Vice Chair, I appreciate and like your reasoning. So, by the way, I just see in 165 there might still be one little tiny tag there between 150 and 165. See that little piece of green down there? I don't know if that's in 150 officially or not. Oh, look at that. That's crazy.
So, Madam Chair, if I could sit there and give a suggestion where if we looked at precinct 97, if we go to move west. Since we're sitting here looking at just refining some numbers, this precinct has 499 citizens, and I think just moving that from 1 to 5 would shore that up pretty well.
It does increase 5 a little bit.
Yep.
It's a crazy shape, though.
It does increase 5, but I will say my biggest concern is getting kind of that eastern boundary that Commissioner Bremer and I have talked about a little closer to Powers to try to make sure that those neighborhoods that are kind of internal there that, I feel are connected. So I don't know that that really solves any of my problem, though it is doable. I don't feel like that is where I'm probably leaning towards trying to get in terms of communities of interest. So
So, Madam Vice Chair, I like the changes that you've made so far, and where I'm kind of debating in my mind is if we make this map 6 and then preserve the original map 5 for future consideration. And I think what I will do is then continue in preparing for our next meeting to try to work off of map 5 and map 6.
I'm very comfortable with that. So, and then I too can take a harder look. And again, this is very difficult, all of these numbers, and I know it's tough, but maybe if I keep looking, I can identify a way to try to get to some of the resolution on more of those communities of interest. But I do think that it's very difficult to do. And if I can come up with anything for our next meeting, that would be great. But I guess I would be then willing to make a motion to take the working map that we've just done and move this forward as a final map 6.
And I'd like to second that, and I appreciate Madam Vice Chair's efforts to do this here, because what this will do, if this vote is successful, it'll put this map in the public domain so the public can consider it for our next meeting, and that'll give them several days to think through it, which I think is good. So I'll second that.
Okay, so that has been moved and seconded. Are there any additional comments? Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I like the recommendations on this. I'd like to have some comments after the vote on, a resident did mention about how we were going to conduct the next meeting in terms of public comments if we do any more changes. So I'd like to address that later after the vote.
Sure, I think that's a great idea. Okay, any other comments before we move to a vote?
Yes, this is Commissioner Brimmer. I too am very comfortable with those changes, but I also think I would also like to see the area to the north and east of the currently proposed District 5 on map 6 move. I would rather move that direction than grabbing the one that Commissioner Vanderwerf mentioned, perhaps grabbing on the west side. Again, from the very beginning, we've talked about the communities of interest and the dividing lines, and I think moving further east into the north, if you have to pick up a precinct or two, makes a lot more sense than that western edge precinct.
No, I don't think so.
I think she is saying, and Commissioner Bremer, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but Commissioner Gonzalez is asking, I think she was saying she thinks northern or eastern makes more sense than moving further to the west with that little precinct, just because of the communities of interest and the original boundaries of that she expressed about moving northern towards Woodman and Powers as those boundaries. Did I get that right, Commissioner Bremer?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Okay, any additional comments? Okay, hearing none, we will proceed with a vote. Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Vanderwerf.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Commissioner Bremer.
Aye.
And the vice chair votes aye, so that passes unanimously. So this will be preserved as a final map 6 to be moved forward to our next meeting.
And then, Commissioner, we'll get this uploaded onto the Esri tool and the Google Drive immediately so members of the public can examine it as well.
Great, thank you so much.
And in the title, if you might include the date of some type as of, again, to make sure it's really clear. Thank you.
Okay. Is there additional direction to staff at this point from the commission members? Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I guess my guidance would be in terms of the next agenda. I do think the resident earlier made a fair point. If we take these maps, let the public speak, and then we give last minute directions of some precinct changes like we just did, and then we basically go to the last meeting for a final vote, I think it would be appropriate to have a second set of public input after our last direction next time, if we make changes to a map, because I think it would be viable for us to hear that public support or opposition to those last minute changes versus going into the last meeting, which could potentially just be straight to voting and not have gotten the public's comments, because we would have to be making the sausage again in the last meeting, which I don't think we want to do. And so I just have, what might be a good idea is maybe a second set of public comments if we were to make changes to maps next time.
And this
Commissioner-
is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, by all means, Commissioner, I'll defer to you.
I was just going to say, I mean, I do want to hear what you had to say about that from a staff perspective, but I absolutely agree with Commissioner Gonzalez. I think it was a great suggestion. And if that needs to be a formal motion, I'll be happy to second it.
Commissioners, sensing that there may be something like that, we do have a draft agenda for the next 2 meetings. It'd be very easy for us to incorporate that. As you're well aware, but for the public's understanding, given the constraints of this, we have to talk to each of you individually with a draft of that agenda. So to make sure that gets posted as quickly as possible. If you don't mind hanging around a little bit after the meeting today, so I can visit with you one-on-one with that draft agenda, and make sure that we've captured the changes appropriately, that it meets the intent, and that we can get it posted as we've done up to this point.
And I'll just be sure with the county attorney, but I don't believe we need a motion to do that. I think we can do that with direction.
Correct, ma'am. I was about to interrupt you to say just that.
Thank you so much. Okay. So any additional direction to staff?
Madam Vice Chair, we maybe have another kind of discussion that we can have, because I think we're going to keep up as maps for consideration, or at least that's the moment, map 1 through 6, it looks like. I'm just wondering if there's any of the maps 1 through 4 that we might want to consider removing from consideration, go into archives and so forth. I'm kind of okay with all of them staying in, but I'll just make a suggestion about final map 4. Maybe we pull that from consideration, but again, I'm not hard over one way or another.
I would be okay with the removal of 4, which I've not been looking at. I was making most of my changes off of 3 or 2.
I am
Commissioner Williams?
fine with that. And then I didn't know if we wanted to talk about removing final map 1 too, but I'll stick on the subject, which is final. I'm fine removing final map 4.
To be honest, I feel like there was not a whole lot of time to digest between Wednesday and today. And though I feel like that is probably the case, I'm also okay with leaving them just so we can all digest further. But it is also, I believe, true that if one of us had a map 4, change and we wanted to bring that back forward, that we could. But then the problem is that going forward to the next meeting, we wouldn't be able to make any additional changes on that. So I would just say, on the air of being a little conservative and cautious here, if we left those in there, I don't think that there's any harm, and it does preserve the ability to make any changes in this next meeting in case we decide, we get into digesting more of these maps with a little more time. And I don't think that it provides any real harm to this commission or the public. So that would be my feedback, but it's up to this.
Yeah.
Obviously the commission.
Madam Vice Chair, I don't have an objection keeping it in. I appreciate the point that you made. I'm just pretty sure we're not going to consider map 4 as a baseline any further, because some of the considerations for map 4 at present is there's actually quite a shifting around in a counter rotation. On map 4, for example, 441 and 219 are back into District 2. And then all of Monument and even 301 is into District 1. So it has this rotation that I don't think we're going to consider in the future. So I don't think we're going to talk about 4 anymore. So that's why I made the suggestion. But if any of the commissioners feel they want to keep it in there for future consideration or for a member of the public to comment off it or something, I'm okay with that too. So now you're going to ask me, what am I going to suggest here?
It's up to you if you'd like to make that motion, but I still do feel like, again, I just didn't have enough time to digest, and you are probably correct, but because of the nature of the time frame, it would be my request that we just leave that one there so that we can, it's there in case we need it, and that way we don't put ourselves into a situation where if someone comes up with a brilliant idea or change to that one, that we have precluded ourselves from doing it. But again, if you'd like to make a motion,
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and not make a motion, but I'll just state for the record, I think any work I'm going to do on going forward will be off of map 5 and map 6.
I have one concern. So, and I would probably agree with Commissioner Geithner to leave all of these in. Final map 1 does not keep all of the southeast whole. And so I'm wondering if we wanted to remove final map 1.
boy, I'm just going to really be the thorn in the side today, but I honestly was working on map 1 to get all of those in there, but
Okay.
decided to defer because of the map that Commissioner Vanderwerf moved forward. So I did not bring all of that in separately because I feel like we may be getting there. But again, I would love to just preserve that because I actually already do have somewhat of a plan to get that all together. It may just all come together on one map, but I would beg your indulgence.
No, that's just fine. I just didn't know as if that was something we wanted to remove as well. So, thank you.
And Madam Vice Chair, if I could make a comment on that as well. It's kind of a similar thing. I don't think I have a hard over position about keeping them in, but I will reiterate that since my map 5, I think included a lot of map 1 and map 3 together. Going forward, I won't be considering map 1 in trying to do any variations. Again, I'll just be considering map 5 and map 6. But we could remove it, but we could leave it in. Maybe there's one precinct now in that map that will tickle your memory that says, you know what, I think I want to try and mess with that in the map 5 and map 6 configurations and see if that does anything useful. So I'm okay leaving it in.
Okay, I really do appreciate just allowing me to use my cautious wanting to preserve that so that it's clear if there is something that I want to request for next week that we haven't removed it and then have to add a whole new map and all of that and just make it clear. Although I agree, I think we're all much more moving toward the new map that was worked on today. So thank you. So I think if there is no further direction, and I'm just going to ask Commissioner Bremer online just to make sure. Commissioner Bremer, did you have any additional direction?
I do not, and I'm great with leaving them all in consideration at this point as well.
Okay. Mr. Schleicher, did you have some closing comments?
No, not at all, Commissioners.
Okay, so it seems that we have concluded our agenda and we will adjourn.
Thank you for running this.